You know what? We should not have this episode. So welcome back to the Not Daily podcast. Last time we perilously attempted to define and understand what cultural singularity could mean, or what the technical singularity, what implication could this technical singularity have on culture. About that, we received a question in the email from MiruQ that is, what about quoting fictional characters, like not quoting the writer, but the character that he or she wrote? How do quotes of fictional characters versus real humans fit into that picture, the picture we painted of pyramid of reference? Do you have an idea? For me, I don't think it matters much whether it is an actual person or a fictional character, insofar as even when you're citing an actual person, you're citing kind of like their persona anyway.
Yeah, I think like the character in a book is a summary of one sort of the book. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. For example, like when you're talking about like Eternal Youth, you're talking about Dorian Gray. You're not really talking about Oscar Wilde at all. So the idea behind that is like, it just, the character of a book or a quote of a book would be like a summary of one author's thought and not like the author in general, maybe.
I mean, you're never referencing, well, you're rarely, in a quote, you're not referencing the person as a whole, be it an actual author or an actual character. You're referencing an idea, right? And this idea can be represented by...
Yeah, but you're closer, like, yeah, obviously. But like, what I mean is like when you're using a character in a thought, you're closer to the whole character than you will be ever closer to like the author.
Yeah, I guess what you mean is the character is less complex and less deep than the author, presumably, unless, I mean, by a relation of inclusion, where the writing of the writer is included in everything the writer does and think, necessarily the writer is more complex.
First, and also like, usually a writer creates a character to pass a thought that he has, like, you know what I mean, like he has a purpose. So in that sense, like when you're quoting a character, maybe like you're encompassing that thought.
Maybe we could come back to our scale or infinite tower of reference and saying that the character might be stepping another level because the author is referencing an idea through this character, and it might be 2 levels instead of 1, but it's essentially the same thing.
This make me think of something that Riley wrote on Facebook, I think, on the last episode as well, which was like she didn't really see the point of like the cultural singularity at all. And I think that like the main thing that she was saying was she didn't really see our point and where we wanted to go. So it was kind of like criticizing what we've done last time.
Like, you keep talking about point, but I don't think any of this has any point. It's not like last time we had an idea that we wanted to go forward to, and I think it's just like, how about blank, and try to explore something.
Yeah, no, I understand that we never try to have like to discuss toward like a point that we have before. I don't think that's what we're doing here, but I do think that usually we have a clear view on like the limit of the subject, meaning we know what we're talking about at the start.
Well, because we were talking about something that might or might not exist, and we try to assess its existence as well as its potential definition. So I think it's a bit natural from there.
Yeah, I agree, and completely agree. And but I think like we should have started like that. I think like the question should have been like, does cultural singularity exist, and not like whatever the episode name was. So by the way, we are obliged to talk about the coronavirus, so like let's do it now.
I vehemently disagree and will do everything in my power to derail the conversation away from the virus.
Okay, so the virus, like we've been quarantined for like 30 days now, which seems like long when you say it, but like it doesn't feel that long, to be completely honest. And like what I wanted to talk about like the quarantine and like how I feel about it, like I'm super happy about my feeling. Meaning like
Okay, let's see where this goes.
no, but like
You're super happy about
so-
your feeling, about your reaction to the quarantine.
Exactly. Because like when we started, like everyone was like, okay, that's way too hard. I'm gonna go insane in like 1 week. So after 1 week, I was like, okay, I want to kill myself now. I want to see people. I want to go out. Like what the hell is happening in my life? Then the second week was like, okay, like that's bullshit. Like next week I'm going out. Like fuck that shit. And by the third week, I was like, okay, that's my new normal. And like, what I'm happy about is that it's the new normal. It's exactly the new normal that I wanted before the coronavirus. I was like, I want a break in my life of like everything.
So the universe responded, and you got your break of everything.
And the universe responded so well, and like my mind fought against how it came. Like, okay, no, I like whatever, I want to go out. But for the last 2 weeks, I'm just embracing the shit. Like, just like, okay, like that's my time to recenter myself, and I'm super glad. And what I wanted to say a bit more, like theoretically, I had a discussion with my sister, and like she had the exact same feeling about like the homeostasis of like the human mind. Meaning, if you're one of the few, like the listener are one of the few that like still have a job, still have the money to like buy food, not lose their apartment, like that sort of thing. If your money situation is kind of the same and you're in a safe environment, it's actually like you come back to a new normal like super fast. Like your brain is just like trying to go back to this homeostasis like state of mind of like, okay, it's fine. Like it's not too bad, it's not too good. Like you came back super fast to like fuck that shit to okay, new normal, what the fuck? Like who cares? And I think like that's kind of fun how we habituate so much so fast to a new situation.
Yeah, it's interesting that this provides everyone with a free cognitive science experiment. There's one thing I wanted to ask about that. That came to mind when you started talking about the habituation process. Is how does a continuous process compare to a discrete process? So, for instance, the lockdown is a continuous time process that's been going on continually for a long time, whereas in discrete process, I'm thinking, for instance, as let's take a very concrete example. When I get my hair dyed, like the first time you do it, it's very terrifying. The second time you already done it once, so you have a reference very clearly that kind of like halves your discomfort. And in this decreasing exponential curve, the third time it's already a lot better, and by the fourth or fifth time you're very used to it. And it's the same when you take a new street in your daily routine or whatever. The first time it seems very long, and you get habituated by the third or fourth time you go by it.
Yeah, I think for sure, like your habit, like if like, but the thing I feel like it's a bit different because it goes with fear. And I think it's two different process, meaning like the fear is just like, and that's kind of known, meaning like with habituation, and that's a known like cognitive psychology, like method treatment, like when you're afraid of something, like you habituate to a less evil version of it, like a bit, and then a bit more, just because it habituates your amygdala not to answer to it. And so when it comes to fear, I feel like it's really a matter of like, you're not knowing what's gonna happen, and like more you do it, more you train yourself to think that nothing bad will happen. When it comes to like other emotion, like a bit more complex emotions than fear, I think it's a bit different than just like pure like knowledge.
Yeah, I don't know. I was not talking about fear in particular. I was more thinking in general about like the general effect that anything has on you. But maybe you can see it as an extended version of that, of the fear. Like if you replace fear by emotional response to a phenomenon.
I feel it's still a bit different, just because like, when it's a discrete phenomenon, you don't like your feeling is also discrete. Like it doesn't like what is not fun, but like what is interesting with the quarantine, exactly that, because it's not discrete. Like you need your whole self need to respond to like the change in your whole like habit, routines, like life. When it comes to a discrete element, either like dyeing your hair, I don't know, like whatever, like jumping, like bungee jumping, whatever. Like it's just because it's discrete, your response is also discrete, so it doesn't last super long.
So maybe that's why you'd need more repetitions to get completely used to it.
Oh, because you were saying that like with discrete it lasts longer.
Well, I don't know. I'm asking how does it compare? And it's true that discrete, when spaced out, you probably would need more repetition. I mean, it's impossible to compare discrete and continuous, right? I mean, it might map a little bit to what you were saying at the beginning with the weeks. Like the first week was the most strong emotional response, and by the second week you attenuate a little bit, and the third week you attenuate even more.
I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor, Stairs. If you'd like to go to a different altitude from the one you're currently on, and you're not able to fly, Stairs is a time-proven way to do so. Stairs' efficiency and simplicity of use has made it the number one way to travel vertically for ages. Stairs.
So let's talk about what we are talking about. So we've been doing this podcast for quite a while, a bit more than 1 year.
A bit more than 1 year.
And now every time we record, we're asking ourselves, oh, should it be our anniversary episode? Should we celebrate because it's the 10th episode or whatever? And I always say that 10 is very arbitrary, and so why would we? So essentially every episode we're like, oh, the next one we're going to make it a big celebration. And so this one, we're going to sit down and agree once and for all what is the best base to count in.
Okay, so this is clearly not our anniversary episode. This is a pre-anniversary episode to determine which episode will be anniversary.
But what if the result is 13, then like it's done?
Then we call it a special episode.
It's a bit of a... no, it's not it's not a bit of a special episode because this topic is as weird as all the other ones.
It's still not a special episode. It might be at the end. It might be at the end of the show.
I love how, you get like the loot box effect that we don't know yet what's going to be in the episode. Will it be a special episode or not? It might be a special episode. That's deep, bro. We could do something about that. We can still change the future. We can make it special.
We always can.
It's very quantum.
But it's still a bit of a special episode because it's the 13 and we are the 13.
Yeah, and we are trying.
So it's still something.
We're really trying to make an anniversary. So like it's.
Are we?
Well, I don't know. You said the result would be the date of the anniversary. So as a precursor to the anniversary, it's kind of like a special thing by extension.
Okay. Okay, it's a pre-celebration of an anniversary that might have been already passed.
Yeah, you don't want to celebrate all at once. You want to pre-celebrate. That might be already passed. Good.
Okay, so that's gonna be hard. So whatever, like let's not whatever, but like let's actually like introduce a topic first.
Yes, so we can move away a little bit from this very practical consideration to go into the mathematical meat of the topic. So in order to celebrate or to pre-celebrate, we decided to tackle the question of what is the best mathematical base to count in, right?
To count everything.
To count everything, including the episodes that will be renamed to fit this framework. I don't.
But there's another, okay, because like
we'll see.
There's actually two questions. Like we're going to tackle that one question, but it's also like why should we celebrate the end of a base? Which is a bit like of a weird thing. Okay. But like we're not talking about that.
Well,
but like
I mean it goes into the definition of a base. So what is a base?
If we want to be like super straightforward, a base is like the unit in which you count in. So meaning
it's not a unit though.
It's not a unit. It's the systems that you use to count units.
Okay.
Okay, so a base is the max number of things you can count. Oh, disgusting.
Okay. So let me do it. Let me define it in a simple but non-intuitive way. A base is the number of symbols that you use to represent digits. So, for instance, usually we count in base 10. So we have 10 symbols, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And when you want to count something higher, you package your thing into bigger sets of 10. And you say you have one package and X thing on the side.
That's not intuitive at all. I don't like that at all.
Yes, I said that.
I think let's just say we don't need a definition we just need an example. Like a base, if you have in the base that we use every day, base 10, if you have 11 eggs, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, and then you go back to 1, so it's 11. If you have 11 eggs in base 5, then you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's one set of 5 eggs, two set of 5 eggs.
Exactly. So the base is the size of the set that you're doing.
It's the size of the maximum. It's the size of the maximum thing that you can count before going back.
Before going back, you don't go back. You go up, but you put a set on the side.
Yeah.
This is extremely confusing to say you go back when you count. So it's the number of symbols you use. It's the size of the set that you define, this bag of eggs that you define.
I think not listing, but giving
examples,
3-4 examples of base that we use every day would be a good way to be sure to be on the same.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna talk about bases, starting from common ones and then to weird ones, and then we'll decide on what's a good base and which one we choose.
Yeah. So first one, base 10. We have 10 digits, and that's why it's called digit, because it comes from
from
10
your fingers.
And so your brain was ooh, I have 10 stuff, so I can count until 10. So let's use this one.
Yes. But you don't have to. Is there more to say about base 10? Except it's
no,
everywhere?
Base 10 is the most boring base. Yeah.
But that's our gateway base, right? The base that will lead you into other bases.
Because we have 10 digits, and because also we use that from ever now, I think our brain is so used to it that it's kind of the base for us.
Exactly. You should keep in mind for this whole conversation that we have completely been raised by the imperialistic domination of the base 10.
It's not imperialistic though, because imperial measure is not base 10.
Okay, maybe imperial was the wrong word. But we're completely formatted by the base 10, and so it's going to be very hard to think about other bases, but we're gonna do our best.
That's why we can also talk about other bases that we use every day. And so just to say that we actually use other bases in an everyday setting. And I was saying that a dozen of eggs is actually a base. Sorry.
Well,
you say I want 2 dozens. Dozens is actually a base that we use every day.
It is, and it can be anything can be a base essentially, and so dozen can be a base, but you never talk about dozens of dozens, and even less about dozens of dozens of dozens. So if you only use the first level, the first layer, I don't know if.
But you can but you use 3 dozens though.
Yeah, but it's more of a unit than a base. Because the whole point of a base is to express any numbers.
So would you say that basic? Okay. So would you say that a clock that use base 60 is not a base? It's a unit, because you never do
So maybe it's a bit early to talk about this, but the clock does use a base 60. And you see several levels of 60 because you have 60 seconds in 1 minute. So it's 1-0. And 60 minutes in 1 hour. So it's 1-0-0. But then you have 24 hours in a day and it all breaks down. So maybe we can see that the on a meta level, an interesting property is whether you keep the same base in all the orders of magnitude, or you change like that, like we do for ours, that suddenly jump to base 24 and then to base 365 when you count days. So that is what's called the imperial system. Where you just mysteriously change.
What's bothering me is like you change the base, like the base is not the same.
Yes.
Like 24 is base 10.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
What I'm saying is like an hour is in base 6. Like all the thing below an hour, not all the thing, but second to an hour is base 60. So that's like one base, and then you go to base 24. But like,
yes,
it's two different things.
Yes. That's exactly what the imperial system is, and what I wanted to get to is that these kind of systems suck, and we can rule them out straight away.
Okay, so you would argue that time should be base 10, like all the way?
I don't know what is the best base. This is literally the point of today.
But like you could say like, oh, we're 0.12, meaning like with 12% of the day.
Yeah. I think there's a case to be made of having the time on a non-imperial system, on a metric system, talking kiloseconds and whatever.
I wanted to buy that watch, but like then I saw the price and I didn't. It's a watch where it's like it's an analog watch with 24 hours on it, and like then like it's actually like base. Like it's actually like best 10 because like the clock is just showing like % of like the 24 hours,
which is perfect. So
it's kind of cute.
Do we agree that the optimal base would be the same at all the levels of order of magnitude and will not turn suddenly into a different base? No?
I mean that's a bit like that's two different things, like because like we change base, so it's not one base. Like we can agree that what we can agree on is that the best way to measure something all the way up is to say in the same base.
Okay, that's what I was trying to express. And that the imperial systems suck. I think it's important to be said.
Yeah, well, we lost our state listeners. Bye.
I don't think anyone has actual arguments for the imperial system, except like it's the way it's always been. But if you do have arguments for the imperial system, you know how to reach us, and we'll be very happy to hear about them and discuss them in the next episode.
Actually, I will be super happy to hear about them because like I really don't see the point.
I know. do you automatically assume I'm being ironic or something? But anyway, know that we have discussed the imperial system. We can go back. You were saying that so in daily life we use base 10 and we also use base 60 for minutes, seconds and hours, kinda.
So base 24 as well, and base 364.
364 and a half and a quarter.
Yeah. So whatever. We use the year as like base. What do we use? We use 30. We use.
I'm gonna do the computer geeky part of it and say.
Yeah, but we don't use them, do we?
Well, it depends what your job is.
Do you actually use like binary code?
Okay, so people working in low level strata of the computer system, like hardware, etc., use binary. So that is to say zeros and one, right? Two figures. But what I wanted to tell you that a lot of people use base 16 for colors in particular, the hexadecimal system. So it goes up to 9, then A, B, C, D, E, F, not G, for the web key, etc. on old routers and this kind of stuff.
But the thing with base 16 is like it's really a matter of being able to write more in less space, more than actually like doing anything.
No, the thing is with those two bases, they are actually related because 16 is a power of 2. So the base 16 is used because it represents directly an area in memory on the storage on the hardware.
Yes, and it used less space than like writing it in binary. Because like if it didn't, like why don't we use binary then?
Yeah, okay, you can see it for humans as a shorthand for binary, I guess.
But it's the only point, no?
Of base 16? It's cute. So you can already see one of the guiding factors that will help us decide of the best base, because the problem with binary is that you only have two symbols, so you get really long numbers when they're written down. So the main advantage of the base 16, the hexadecimal, is to be a shorthand for these long strings of binary, I guess, and represent binary as is, because it's a sub base, it's the same power. And I think we can agree that binary might not be the best base because of this, because it takes too much space.
Binary is the worst base for human being. Like, it's good for computers, sure, but like for human being, like it's the worst base. You can't do anything with it too.
I think there's a bunch of cool mathematical properties that translate really neatly, but I'm not very brushed up on them.
If you go like human-centric, there's no point in counting two.
Well,
like meaning there's this really cool cognitive thing where like your brain doesn't do the same thing when it counts until 3, and then it goes like so your brain recognizes until 3 things and then it counts basically. So I feel like anything that is below 3 for human, like as a human-centric approach, would be useless because you don't count them. And I think like the first thing of a base is like counting the stuff.
I was gonna say like maybe the having two symbols for on and off is kind of cute, but yeah, I guess.
But what would be cute, like that's what I was. So a long time ago, like I've designed like card for a game based on a tarot game, and tarot goes until like I can't remember the numbers, like 21.
Yeah.
And what I was doing is actually like putting. So to count until 21, I was putting stars, and I put the stars into chunk of 3. That I then like put in chunk of 3 as well. So I actually use like base 3 just because on the system of like people will recognize like group of 3 without counting them.
You didn't use the base 3, you used the 3 grouping, right? You didn't have a bigger star to represent 3 stars, did you?
No. Well, you like I put 3 together, so like those 3 little stars like made a big chunk basically.
Yeah. You made groups of 3s, and actually, so this is gonna break the flow, but it goes straight into something I absolutely wanted to mention as another property of the base system that we might want to design or talk about or consider, is the meta base of the system in a way. I don't think there is, I've looked a little bit and I don't think there is a term for it, but in our base 10, we have words to express 1, 10, 100, 1,000, and then you say 10,000, etc. There is some kind of meta base where you group the digits by group of 3. And it becomes really interesting because when you learn Japanese, you discover that they actually use 4. Well, they have a word to say 10,000, and when you talk about 100,000, it's 10 of that.
Ooh, cute. Okay.
So of course, after World War II, they had to learn how to write by groups of 3, but they still speak in groups of 4, which makes matter extremely confusing. Of course, like everything Japanese. But it's interesting to see that there is this other parameter, the meta parameter, and by how much meta symbols you have to express the order of magnitudes, if you will. And in this, it seems pretty well, based on what you say, it seems pretty clear that the meta base, the optimal meta base, would be 3.
I think so. I would be happy with picking 3.
Okay. This kind of meta base also appears in phone numbers, where you have to group digits by because phone numbers are often like 10, 12, between 8 and 12 digits usually. And so that's too much to remember. So you remember a sequence of subgroups that are usually 2, 3, or 4 digits long. For France, it's usually 2. But so 2, 3, or 4 is the only possible candidates for this metabase, I guess.
Yeah.
2 is a bit small because you can probably take better advantage of the human brain capacity, and 4 might be a bit ambitious.
Yeah, 3 is good.
Let's settle for 3.
So okay, 3. So we have like maybe the least interesting properties of a base picked.
I don't know. I think it's extremely interesting because not a lot of people talk about it. Everybody takes it for granted, and I think that's really like And anyone who learns Japanese will wonder about that. No, any computer scientist learning Japanese will wonder about that probably. I mean, this fucked me up to no end. Like saying number in Japanese is the hardest thing ever because they don't use the same metabase as us.
Okay, so 3. So should the actual base be
3? A power of 3 to fit that?
a power of 3? Yeah.
I believe it or not, during my pre-thinking phase, I did not actually consider that possibility.
Okay, what did you consider then?
So the bases I wrote down,
Yeah.
many of them we already talked about.
Okay, so what was them?
So I wanted to talk about binary, but
Yeah.
I don't think that's good because it's too long. Hexadecimal is actually a very interesting candidate.
Yeah.
The base 24, I came to like it a lot for its property because I've long wondered why we have 24 hours in the day because it's not like 365 where it's a revolution of the sun, so you kind of have to, like, it's dictated by nature. The 24, we cut the day in 24, right? Nobody else forces us to. And the reason why this is an important number is because it's dividable by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is really cute. Maybe you want to do something with that. Is there anything you want to add to the base 24?
Okay, I thought you were listing everything and then I would like...
Well, I can list everything. I can go on, but if you want to weigh in.
I think I like 24. I like 24 because like we're used to it as human beings, I guess.
In a way.
And it's high enough for the base 10 to be kind of included in, like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't, like, a lot of things don't go that high. So I feel like if we take a human-centric approach of like creating a new base for everyday use, I feel like higher is kind of better just because you don't change habit for quite a lot of stuff.
Do you know how many elements the human mind can distinguish?
It depends on what, but like 7.
7. So 9 is pushing it a little bit.
If it's number, it's like 7 minus plus 2.
You know what? We should not have this episode. We should run a widespread, wide-scale cognitive science experiment with a lot of bases to see which one people remember the best.
Is the most efficient?
Yeah.
But the problem is like best 10 will be.
Yeah, because of the bias. But so my counterpoint to what you are saying is I think 24 symbols might be too much to make sense of intuitively.
We have 26 letters in the alphabet.
Yes, but the ordering...
You have the ordering in the alphabet.
The ordering is okay, but the mapping is a bit hard. Like, do you really know intuitively what percentage of the alphabet, like, K is?
Yeah, it's like middle-ish plus.
It works, but it's hard. So I don't know.
I feel like I just feel it's like a learning curve.
Could be.
This episode is brought to you by tennis. Do you like hitting small yellowish bouncy balls with vaguely circular shaped objects? Well, you're in luck because that's exactly what tennis is. So give it a shot.
No, but I have a very strong opinion and other reason that I want to propose, because you seem to say, like, let's take a base as big as the brain allows, and I understand this sentiment and I empathize, but if I had to make a criticism of base 10, I would maybe say that it is too big rather than too small. And that's why I want to absolutely switch gear very fast. Because yeah.
Why?
Because so the base I ended up choosing, therefore, is 5. Like
6.
No,
5?
no,
6?
I would go towards 5 probably because of fingers, and it's very compatible with base 10. But anyway, so why do I think that the base 10 is too big? Which is the big thing here. One of the things that your base does is allow you to decompose any number on the powers of this base. right?
Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of like a vectorial space in a way. But most importantly, it defines the orders of magnitude in your system.
Yeah.
And therefore, your intuition to deal with big things, because as soon as you exit like the sub-base level, you think in logarithm. You think in the order of magnitude. The human brain is less good at telling the difference between 200 and 300 than between 100 and 1000. And my gut feeling is that as we go up to like millions, billions, etc., there is a lot of times where we need to deal with big numbers. And I get the feeling personally that base 10 is bad at expressing those big numbers. I think we would benefit for more thin-grained description of the difference between 5 million and 10 million or something like that.
Okay, like basically like what you're saying, just to like recap it in one sentence, what you're saying is like we suck as human beings to differentiate like 100 million and 10 billion just because it's high and it's in the logarithmic scale. Like we don't see that much of a difference between the two, even if it's like massive. But we're really good at like dealing with 5 versus like 7.
Yeah.
The thing is, the higher you go, because like when it's small, you see that like between 100 and 300, I think like everyone understand and feels the difference as well. Between 1,000 and like 10,000, people see the difference and feel the difference as well. If you go higher into the base, you make that like you make that shift higher. Meaning, if you use a base 100, like the difference between 10 millions and 20 millions will make as much sense as the difference between 10 and 20. You know what I mean?
Are you saying that the difficulty, the blur at higher number is independent of the base, kind of depends on just the number, the number of elements?
Yes. It's not what I was saying, but yes, I agree with that completely.
I mean, it's another way to look at this question.
Yes.
That is a good point. So maybe I'm just being that like my assumption was that if you lower the base, you make the order of magnitude, you get more order of magnitude to describe big numbers. But
what it would look like let's try it. What it would look like, it would just like instead of like 10 million and 20 million, it would be 20 versus 40.
But you'd have less big split between million and billion.
It would be closer in
absolute number, in absolute count.
Yeah, in units, but it won't be closer in
mind.
Feeling? Yeah. I mean, if you say 1 versus 4, like you make the difference easily. If you send like 10 millions versus 10 billions, like you like, okay, whatever. But the thing is like, it maybe goes just to say that because we don't really know what a billion is, we just don't see a billion very often. It's just a matter of like seeing it often. And I think like with more habituation, we get used to it and we have a better sense. Like I feel like in the recent year, because there's more and more billionaires, like a billion seems much lower than like what it was before.
Okay, yeah, that's a reasonable counter argument. So maybe we can drop base 5, which is not that great a base anyway, but we have 5 fingers. So.
I feel like and like base 5, like you can't divide it. Like I don't know, like it's a prime number.
Yeah, it sucks a little bit. So the other bases I had in mind, to come back to the initial question, the bases I actually like and care about are base 1, where you have only one symbol. Well, you have 0 symbol. You have just like you count with like essentially dots.
That's a bad idea. Okay.
That's a bad idea, but it's so cute.
It's really cute, but it's a really bad idea.
Okay. So what do you think about this next one? Base Aleph 0.
Aleph 0.
Do you know what Aleph is?
No.
Aleph 0? Aleph 0 is the number of integers.
Okay.
Right? It's the smallest infinity you can have.
Okay.
I'm not going to go too deep into theories of infinity because I skipped all of my math classes.
No, but we can just say that's like basically the first infinity that you encounter.
Yeah, it's the first infinity, and then so you have several types of infinity, like what is the number of reals, numbers with commas between 0 and 1, or what is the number of integers?
Way too complicated.
Yeah. Okay, so Aleph 0 is the smallest infinity possible. You have as many symbols as there are integers.
Okay, that's fine with me.
So So you have infinity many symbols, which is a bit annoying, granted. Like I can grant you that it's not the most practical base, but it has some really cute property. So I think we can never use this base because a lot of properties of this base are not proven yet. Like there is a lot of ongoing mathematical theories. In particular, we don't know if 2 Aleph 0 equals Aleph 1, which is like the next bigger infinity. But what would happen in that, I just wanted to stress what would happen in that base is that you have this infinity of symbols, one for each integers. And then when you reach the end, you have 1 infinity and 0 integers. And if you want to go to the next number, next denomination or whatever, you need to go 1 degree of infinity higher. So you have 1, 0, 0. So you have infinity digits for the units, but for the dozen, for the tens, you have only 1, and for the 100, only 1. So it might not be the most convenient one. I can grant you that. But I think I have a soft spot in my heart for it. And I'm willing to celebrate our Aleph 0th episode.
I mean, it's a super cute base, but the problem with that base is that...
Is it the lot of open mathematical questions?
No, but like I feel... No, I don't mind about that, I guess. What I care about is that you can't do anything. Basically.
Well, there is a lot to memorize. That this symbol plus this symbol equals this symbol. It is not optimized for and maybe that's something that's a property we can extrapolate to all bases. The base is not optimized for operations inferior to it. So when you have to say like 5 plus 2, you have to hardcode and learn that it corresponds to this symbol. So admittedly, that's a lot of hard coding for the symbols of of base Aleph 0 if you don't use another base.
Admittedly.
Yeah, I never said it was without problems. I just said like maybe we can walk through these problems to use it.
I think we can't use it. I think it's a cute idea, a bit of a useless one.
I mean, as long as we're dealing with problems that are not infinite, maybe. But I'm sure that one day where we'll be all merged consciousness and infinity will be our daily. After the singularity, I'm predicting that this base will become much more important. Since we're running out of time, short on time, I have another question that I think we could be considering, and I think it has an easy answer, is that the base need not be an integer. It could be a real number. It exists. Non-real bases exist and are possible in math.
Yeah.
Like you could have pi base.
Yeah.
And the reason I think it's shit is because when you count in your base, so 1, 0 represent pi squared, right? By definition. So you'd have 1 that is 1 pi, 2 that is 2 pi, 3 that is 3 pi, and then you have pi squared. And there is not the same gap between 2 and 3 and between 3 and 1, 0. And I think that's just shit.
No, it's bullshit.
Yeah, so I think we can skip it, but I think it's worth mentioning that we thought it over and decided that it was objectively wrong.
Yeah, I think like you said everything that needed to be said on that subject in like 2 sentences. I have no comments on that.
Do you have other bases to bring to consideration, or should we try and conclude?
I think like basically we can try to conclude, but like what we haven't, like what we've said but like not really said is prime numbers need to be not considered. I think it needs to be dividable.
Why though? What is half the base? What is like quarter of the base? Oh, okay. It's nice to build up an intuition if you have symbols that correspond to fraction of your base. Okay, it's easier. So we've been talking a lot about going up in big numbers. It's easier to make intuitions about lower numbers and to.
And also, I think we need to talk about like just a bit just for the conclusion. Like we need to talk about birthday. What do we do with base 10 though? we do like all unit basically for birthday. But it depends. Like for a podcast, for example, like you do the 10s, you do the 50, you do the 20, but you also do the 25.
I think people celebrate orders of magnitude mostly. 10, 100, 1,000.
I mean, your 50th birthday is more important than your like 40th birthday.
Objectively, probably not, but subjectively, I think you have a point, and that's because it's half of the base.
So to keep that properties, if we want to keep that property, we need to be able to divide it basically.
So I get the feeling that what we've landed on is that base 16 is the way to go.
Or base 9.
Or base 9.
9 is fun.
9 is fun. I haven't thought a lot about base 9.
Because like you can divide it by 3. So first like we keep counting by 3 stuff. 1/3 is like a thing, like just a third of stuff. I don't know, like a third is a nice kind of like feeling.
I know how to settle it because I need to think more about base 9 because I'm just like envisioning it for the first time now. So I'm gonna say we leave it here. Everybody, all of you listeners, please vote in the YouTube comments, on Twitter, on Reddit, or in email on what you think after this thorough argumentation. What should the base that we use for counting the episodes be? And we'll tally up the votes next time and decide.
Okay.
Just as a little conclusion, I think I wanted to stress out that I grasp a better understanding of the fact that choosing your base gives you more intuition on what's below it. Essentially, your brain like gets a good subdivision of what's below the base, and also in orders of magnitude, in logarithmic scale above it, but not necessarily like maybe you're just bad at bigger number or whatever the base is. So I think that's the main consideration you should keep in mind while voting.
Yeah, and anniversary are fun. Also, that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Okay, so you want it to happen as frequently as possible because we can also go base 1.
No, but like but base 1 is bullshit. but like I mean with 9 it's fun because like all the 3 are anniversary.
Let's say our 3 main contenders are 9, 16, and 24. Maybe do we keep 10 or is it out of the running?
I mean, like 10 is no fun. I think 10 was the worst. Like 9 is better in every way.
9 is very close to 10.
Oh.
It wouldn't change much. Yeah.
That is true. Except that you can divide it by 3. And I think like 3 is the new 5. You know what I mean?
Maybe we say no, but it comes back to what you are saying. I think we need to think about it, like internalize them and use them a little bit.
What I'm a bit sad about is we haven't decided about the best right now, so we need to we're gonna use best 10 for the title of this episode, which I'm kind of sad because I kind of wanted to use a new base just for this one episode.
Oh, but we'll change it retroactively. That's okay. We are sure it's not gonna be base 14. So it's not, the next one is not our anniversary, so that's okay.
Except if we choose like best 7, which will never happen.
Yeah, don't be absurd, Vlad. We're not insane, I think.